RT News introduces a new monocycle developed in Russia. VOA News reports on the development of a robot with the movements of a rattlesnake and a portable electric light developed for places without electricity. In Korea-related news, we take a look at the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference held in Busan, Korea. France 24 covers the latest global issues from around the world. Hello, I'm Brian Doe from Global Business Report, bringing you the latest IT and business news from various parts of the world. As you can see, today is a special edition of Global Business Report. We're here down in Busan at the Bexco Convention Center for the 19th International Telecommunications Union, or the ITU, otherwise known as PP14. It's also called the ICT Olympics, and the conference will discuss many agenda items. Amongst those, South Korea will bring up agenda items such as the ICT conversions and the promotion of the Internet of Things. Apart from official meetings among government officials taking place, there'll be various side events that will attract visitors and opportunities for companies to make further businesses in Korea. The ITU gathering will greet some 3,000 government officials from 193 countries around the world and will include 150 ministers and vice ministers. And over 300,000 visitors are expected to attend the special event, such as the ICT Industrial Exhibition and the Global ICT Conference. And since we're here today, Global Business Report will be covering many of the items here and the scenes here at the 2014 Plenipotentiary Conference. But before we go on, let's start with our first news from RT. Decades ago, the 1,000-pound Dianosphere was once praised as the high-speed vehicle of the future. But now, a new monocycle is in development, and it's supposed to be another form of transport. RT has the news.
Meet Igor Kazarenka. Although the St. Petersburg inventor's not related to John Peirce, he could be considered his spiritual descendant. Igor's company, Pockets Transport, produces all sorts of weird and wonderful contraptions, ranging from scooters with tracks to propeller backpacks. So the inventor's latest addition to the product range didn't seem out of place. However, unlike Peirce, he does acknowledge that there are more practical forms of transport out there. The inner frame, shaped like the old Soviet quality mark, is surrounded by a 2-meter diameter outer rim. Wheels on each corner run around the inside, powered by a 3-horsepower single-cylinder motor. The whole thing weighs 58 kilos, has a top speed of 50 kilometers an hour, and a price tag of 1,000 euros. But we wondered what else you could buy for this money. You could get a decent road bike, which also has a top speed of roughly 50 kilometers an hour, depending on wind conditions and fitness levels. Or you could buy a 14-horsepower Chinese-made motorbike with a top speed of 110. But if you're really looking to impress a lady, you're probably better off getting 2 tickets to Paris and renting a scooter. Needless to say, 2-meter wheels aren't generally available in your local bike shop. So Igor had to craft his own using 2mm thick steel and a vulcanized section of hosepipe for the tubeless tyres. As a niche product, Igor has only made 2 of them so far, but their hypnotic effect means they're never short of attention. Perfect for a new Russian TV series.
The story takes place in the mid-1950s, which means we have to use materials and components appropriate for that time. According to the plot, the main character assembled the monocycle himself from parts he found lying around.
To give the monowheel an authentic 50s Soviet feel, the square metal tube used to make the inner frame has been replaced with regular round tube because it simply didn't exist back in the day. It'll also be pimped out with a handle from a classic Ural motorbike, leather seats and a scooter petrol tank. These and all the other modifications will add 12 kilos to the overall weight. So we were keen to see how it'd handle on set. All that extra weight certainly made it more unwieldy, but the stuntman seemed to have just about got the hang of it by the end of the day. The series to be shown on Russia's Channel 1 is just the latest in a long line of films and TV to feature the modern-day Dinosphere.
Time has a cyclical nature. Time and time again, people return to the things that were created earlier, but using new materials. A monocycle could be considered a fully-fledged form of transport, but with limitations. I mean, would you be able to react in time to a situation on the road when you were traveling at 30 kilometers an hour? Yes. Any faster than that, and I'm not so sure. So it's good for a casual ride, even on public roads. Why not?
I think I'll give it a bit more practice before hitting the open road, but that was enough riding mono for me for one day. Luckily, Igor's mono wheels can be attached together to create what's known as a die wheel. So who knows, with its increased stability and passenger capacity, maybe the die wheel is the high-speed vehicle of the future. But that's a topic for another day.
Our next news is from VOA. A meter-long robot with slithering movements, much like a deadly rattlesnake, is being developed for future research in the US. And also, VOA has another story for people who still don't have access to electricity in many parts of the world. A company in the Netherlands has developed an ingenious idea and product. It's an electric light that's safer, healthier, and even more affordable. VOA has both the stories in more detail.
Martian terrain is rocky and sandy, making it hard to navigate, says Joe Mendelson, research director at Zoo Atlanta.
Robots are expensive, and a robot gets stuck in the sand, that's a problem, especially if that sand happens to be, say, on another planet, right, or very distant from an exploration post. Zoo Atlanta offered to help. The zoo was the hub for an experiment with deadly sidewinder rattlesnakes. Using high-speed video cameras, scientists followed the snakes as they moved with little effort up incline, says Daniel Goldman, associate physics professor at the Georgia Institute of Technology. He's also co-author of a new study that explains the snake's serpentine movement.
We noticed that the animals were in fact sidewinding, using the same kind of pattern of sidewinding they use on hard ground, but laying instead of only a few points of contact on the body contacting the ground, they were essentially laying more and more snake body down on the hill as the incline angle increased.
Next into the sandpit was Mod Snake, a meter-long robot composed of 16 identical modules, each 6 centimeters in diameter. Goldman says the bot, developed at Carnegie Mellon University, has a long history of getting in and out of tight places.
It turned out they had actually been using the sidewinding gait in their robot for many years to traverse all kinds of ground, but always had trouble on sandy dune inclines.
Once researchers had quantified the real snake's wave-like movement into programmable data, the next step was to get the robot to climb in the same way.
And those same waves existed in the robot and allowed it to make its maneuvers and allowed us to modify those waves to make the kind of maneuvers that the snake did on sand dunes of different incline, that is, laying down more robot as the hill angle increased.
Goldman hopes the next-generation snake robot may be deployed to save lives or explore remote regions on Earth or in space. He's confident that it won't get stuck in the sand. The study is in the current issue of the journal Science. Roseanne Skirbel, VOA News, Washington.
When darkness falls, many kids in rural parts of Haiti, Rwanda, and in this refugee camp in Syria read or do their homework by candlelight or a kerosene-burning lamp. The open flames sometimes cause fires, while toxic fumes lead to respiratory problems. Portable electric light is safer, healthier, and now even cheaper. Camille van Gestel heads a Dutch company called Waka Waka. He spoke to Voice of America via Skype.
This is the first time that artificial light or solar LED light is now less expensive than kerosene.
LED is short for light-emitting diode, a safe and efficient electronic light source that shines with bright white light. Van Gestel says Waka Waka, which means shine bright in Swahili, is the most efficient solar-powered light and phone charger in the world today. When fully charged, it shines for up to 16 hours. It is affordable, sustainable, and its battery lasts for a long time. It can be set up on any flat surface, hung from a ceiling, or perched atop a glass bottle. Van Gestel says it is intended for the poorest of the poor.
Well, our primary target is to reach people who live base of the pyramid, so who live off less than $2 a day.
Van Gestel says his company operates like any other business, but some of the money made from selling its products is used to make Waka Waka lights affordable to poor people. He says the initiative is supported by international non-government organizations.
The International Rescue Committee was one of the first to actually take the Waka Waka power into Syria to provide light and power to Syrian refugees, and is now the Waka Waka is the most valued non-food item in Syria.
In the past 24 months, the company has distributed around 300,000 units in places such as Syria, Haiti, Rwanda, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Its goal is to reach 1.2 billion people by 2030. George Putic, VOA News, Washington.
Organizing the meeting here in Busan, Korea, will give a special flavor to our strategic plan. It will be more visionary, it will be more strategic, it will be actually more practical, because what we see around us in ICT development will have a real impact on this future strategic plan. And I hope that that will be approved unanimously by our member states. This is the true tradition of ITU, where we don't have to vote on those issues. We'll come unanimously to have a common statement on it. And you could see that from the policy statements that are going on in the room, that there is already a common vision, and that's key for the success of any plenipotentiary conference.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for a special edition of Global Business Report. We're here today at the Busan Bexco Convention for the International Telecommunications Union ITU Plenipotentiary meeting. So, we're here today with the conference, and we'd like to introduce to you Mr. Sang-Hak Lee, who is the Deputy Secretary General for the PP14. And I'd like to ask him to explain to us more further about what this conference is about. So, could you please tell our audience what the ITU conference is?
Yes, thanks very much for inviting me. ITU is an acronym of International Telecommunications Union. It is United Nations specialized agency. It is oldest international organization in the world. It is older than the United Nations itself. There's only one international organization to cover all the area, is ITU. Then what is ITU PP, Plenipotentiary Conference? It is a top-level decision-making body of ITU. It is held every 4 years, and almost 150 ministers level come together to discuss and finalize their decision. And this decision is has an effect of international law.
Thank you. What is the significance of ICT in the modern era these days, and how does it help develop society?
Oh, yes. So far, the telecommunication and ICT, it is just focused on the communication part, make the distance short and make the communication more effective between humans. But nowadays, it is beyond communication between humans. It is kind of the communication between human and everything, and between and among everything.
I see.
For example, let me say it more clearly. When you think of the Internet of Things, when you adapt the ICT to your shoes recognize your weight and your health condition, and the symptom and the signal directly connected to your personal doctor. So it is not only communication, but also it covers all areas of your daily life.
Oh, I see. That's very interesting. And Korea actually registered to be an ITU country in 1952.
Yes. When
many Koreans didn't know about probably telecommunications. Can you tell me what the background was in registering such a long time ago?
Oh, yes. 192, it means it's the midst of the Korean Civil War. So it means almost every infrastructure, including telecommunication, has been disrupted and devastated. So at the time we needed great help and support from international society to recover our basic infrastructure, including telecommunication. We actually did, because of we joined ITU, and after the gaining the support and the donation from international community, we finally recovered our infrastructure. So since the 1990s, Korea has become the world leader in terms of ICT infrastructure.
Sure. And because of that, I think Korea is now the second country behind Japan in 1994 to hold the ITU conference in Asia. What do you think, what effects will it have for Korea this year?
As you said, the Plenipotentiary conference was held in 20 years ago in Japan, and because Plenipotentiary conference is held every 4 years, so same continent can have opportunity to hold this Plenipotentiary conference every 20 years. As I said, Korea has been known as an ICT powerhouse in terms of ICT infrastructure. But that's all. When you think of the Korea, Korea is the best country which can make the mobile phone and cell phone very well, and the broadband, the connectivity speed is quite high than other countries.
Sure.
But that's all. What we need is to become and make the Korea as a leader in terms of policy and diplomacy in the ICT world. So by utilizing this opportunity of hosting Plenipotentiary conference, I believe that Korea can become the world leader in terms of ICT policy making and ICT diplomacy hub.
I see. Also, it's difficult to find a country that has been as successful as Korea is to rapidly develop their country using IT. What do you think Korea needs to do to continue this success and to continue to develop?
This Plenipotentiary conference, it has its main agenda. This agenda is, in other words, Connect 2020. It means by 2020, ITU has a plan to make the world a better place by utilizing ICT. Let me say the catchphrase and targets of the ICT, the Connect 2020. The first one is growth, and the second one is sustainability, and the third one is innovation, and the fourth one is cooperation. If we think of the Korea situation, Korea, we have already achieved the growth and the sustainability. What we need, what we require to become more successful growth, we need innovation and cooperation. So for the innovation, our country, this country has tried to make our country to be the creative economic country. So because of the creative economic country is quite related to the innovation. Sure. And as for the cooperation, Korea is a very small country. We don't have much resources. So it means we need to make a cooperation with the international community and international society. So we have to make international cooperation. Sometimes we have to support the developing country, and sometimes we have to contribute international society to make the humankind's the quality of life better. So what we have to do is make the innovation and making cooperation further and better.
I see. And lastly, Korea plans to promote the Internet of Things during the conference. Could you tell me more in detail what they will be promoting?
Yes. Even though IoT, Internet of Things, are very prerequisite for the further development of the world, and it is known as the basic economic engine for the further development. But ITU, as the international organization, it doesn't have any kind of the resolution for developing this IoT. So because of that, Korean government, we make a contribution as a form of resolution, and we suggested and we proposed the ITU to adopt this resolution at this Plenipotentiary conference.
I see. Well, thank you today for joining us, Mr. Lee. I think our TV audience was very thankful for that introduction for the ITU conference. Now, for those at home watching us on TV, please stay tuned for our next news from France 24.
Five-year-old Bodhi the dog has over 146,000 followers on Instagram. And that's down to the pooch's taste for fashion. As we can see here, Bodhi's owners get him modelling designer gear and then upload the shots of the best-dressed dog in town. You can take a closer look on the Menswear Dog Tumblr blog. In this video currently doing the rounds online, we see a group of surfers demonstrating their breathtaking talent. Filmed in an indoor facility, we see the flow riders surfing artificial waves, pulling off one amazing stunt or trick after another. You can watch the video in its entirety on Devon Supertramp's YouTube channel.
On Global Business Report today, we took a look at various IT and business news from around the world. First, we looked at Russia's Monocycle, the snake-like robot, and also the portable electric light. And last but not least, the 19th ITU conference here at Exco in Busan. And as we mentioned before, the conference has a nickname called the ICT Olympics. Why? Because it's held every 4 years. And during this conference, many of the delegates have to train and prepare to present their agenda item to the delegates and the participants here. And the heated discussions and debate among participants will eventually affect the ICT industry. And of course, this industry will affect the advancement of socially and economic position of many countries from around the world. So, I hope you enjoyed today's edition, and we'll be back next week with more exciting IT and business news. Thank you for watching.